What is the primary distinction between the Council of Europe and the European Union? Particularly in the context of data protection laws. A. The Council of Europe enforces EU data protection laws. B. The Council of Europe is an international organization, whereas the EU is an economic and political union. C. The EU's primary focus is data protection. D. The Council of Europe and the EU have no connection. Correct answer. B. The Council of Europe is an international organization, whereas the EU is an economic and political union. What role does the European Parliament play in the legislative process of EU data protection laws? A. It proposes data protection laws. B. It approves and enforces data protection laws. C. It has no role in the legislative process. D. It develops legislation and supervises other institutions. Correct answer. D. It develops legislation and supervises other institutions. What principle guides the territorial scope of the GDPR regarding processing of personal data by controllers or processors? A. GDPR only applies to EU member states. B. GDPR applies if a data controller or processor is established in the EU. C. GDPR does not cover data controllers operating outside the EU. D. GDPR applies solely to digital data processing. Correct answer. B. GDPR applies if a data controller or processor is established in the EU. What is the difference between a data controller and a data processor in the context of GDPR? A data controller solely manages data storage. B. A data processor determines the purposes and means of processing. C. A data controller determines the purposes and means of processing. D. A data processor has no responsibility over data protection. Correct answer. C. A data controller determines the purposes and means of processing. How does the GDPR differentiate between personal, anonymous, and pseudonymous data? A. Anonymous data is identifiable data. B. Pseudonymous data is not considered personal data. C. Personal data relates to an identified or identifiable natural person. D. Pseudonymous data can be easily re-identified. Correct answer. C. Personal data relates to an identified or identifiable natural person. What constitutes a joint controller relationship according to the GDPR? A. Two entities sharing data with third parties. B. Two controllers determining the purposes and means of processing together. C. A controller subcontracting a processor. D. Two independent organizations processing data independently. Correct answer. B. Two controllers determining the purposes and means of processing together. What are the lawful grounds for processing personal data under the GDPR? A. Consent, legal obligation, and contractual necessity. B. Consent, legal obligation, and public interest. C. Consent, contractual necessity, and legitimate interests. D. Consent, public interest, and contractual necessity. Correct answer. C. Consent, contractual necessity, and legitimate interests. What is the significance of the GDPR's accountability principle for data controllers and processors? A. It mandates technical safeguards. B. It obligates controllers and processors to demonstrate compliance. C. It focuses on data minimization. D. It requires anonymization. Correct answer. B. It obligates controllers and processors to demonstrate compliance. What are the key principles of data processing under the GDPR? A. Accuracy, transparency, and storage limitation. B. Lawfulness, transparency, and consent. C. Fairness, storage, and anonymization. D. Data minimization, integrity, and consent. Correct answer. A. Accuracy, transparency, and storage limitation. How does the GDPR apply to the processing of children's data in the context of information society services? A. Children's data can be processed without restriction. B. Parents must provide consent for children under 18. C. Processing requires parental consent for children under 16. D. Children's data processing is prohibited. Correct answer. C. Processing requires parental consent for children under 16. How does the GDPR handle special categories of personal data? A. It allows unrestricted processing. B. It prohibits processing except under specific conditions. C. It applies only to identifiable data. D. It restricts processing entirely. Correct answer. B. It prohibits processing except under specific conditions. What is the consequence of a processor infringing the GDPR by determining the purposes and means of processing? A. The processor remains a processor. B. The processor must terminate its contract. C. The processor is considered a controller for that processing. D. The processor faces fines. Correct answer. C. The processor is considered a controller for that processing. What are the responsibilities of a processor engaging a sub-processor under the GDPR? A. Sub-processors must adhere to separate contracts. B. The processor must inform the controller and ensure compliance. C. Sub-processors are not covered by the GDPR. D. The controller is responsible for managing the sub-processor. Correct answer. B. The processor must inform the controller and ensure compliance. What is the GDPR's approach to direct marketing? A. It prohibits all direct marketing. B. It allows direct marketing if explicit consent is obtained. C. It permits direct marketing with legitimate interest. D. It has no specific guidelines on direct marketing. Correct answer. C. It permits direct marketing with legitimate interest. How does the GDPR ensure data transfers to third countries are compliant? A. It mandates data protection contracts. B. It requires controllers to notify supervisory authorities. C. It restricts transfers to countries with adequate protection levels. D. It prohibits transfers entirely. Correct answer. C. It restricts transfers to countries with adequate protection levels. What is the primary difference between the European Court of Justice and the European Court of Human Rights regarding data protection? A. The ECJ only handles commercial data issues. B. The ECJ interprets EU law, while the ECHR upholds human rights. C. The ECHR oversees GDPR enforcement. D. The ECJ has no role in data protection. Correct answer. B. The ECJ interprets EU law, while the ECHR upholds human rights. How does the GDPR address household activities in its material scope? A. It excludes all household activities. B. It includes household activities that process data by automated means. C. It applies to all household activities. D. It excludes activities solely personal or familial. Correct answer. D. It excludes activities solely personal or familial. What is the GDPR's stance on data minimization? A. It limits the amount of personal data collected. B. It focuses on anonymizing data. C. It prohibits data storage beyond specific timeframes. D. It has no stance on data minimization. Correct answer. A. It limits the amount of personal data collected. How does the GDPR define sensitive data categories, and what is a key exception to processing them? A. It includes all personal data. B. It includes data revealing racial or ethnic origin, among others. C. It excludes genetic and biometric data. D. It prohibits processing without explicit consent. Correct answer. B. It includes data revealing racial or ethnic origin, among others. How does the GDPR address the accountability of controllers and processors? A. It mandates detailed record-keeping and compliance measures. B. It restricts data processing activities. C. It requires annual reports. D. It has no specific requirements. Correct answer. A. It mandates detailed record-keeping and compliance measures. How does the GDPR handle cross-border data transfers within the EU and EEA? It prohibits transfers entirely. B. It requires individual contracts. C. It allows transfers to countries with GDPR-like regulations. D. It permits free flow of data between EU, EEA countries. Correct answer. D. It permits free flow of data between EU and EEA countries. How does the GDPR ensure data breaches are managed appropriately? A. It mandates notification to supervisory authorities and affected individuals. B. It prohibits data breaches. C. It requires data processors to handle breaches alone. D. It mandates public disclosure. Correct answer. A. It mandates notification to supervisory authorities and affected individuals. How does the GDPR handle personal data retention? A. It mandates indefinite storage. B. It restricts retention to specified periods. C. It requires periodic audits. D. It prohibits data storage. Correct answer. B. It restricts retention to specified periods. How does the GDPR apply to the processing of genetic and biometric data? A. It prohibits their processing entirely. B. It applies to them as special categories. C. It allows unrestricted processing. D. It mandates encryption. Correct answer. B. It applies to them as special categories. What role does the European Data Protection Board, EDPB, play in data protection? A. It develops GDPR amendments. B. It supervises national data protection authorities. C. It provides guidance and monitors consistency. D. It has no role in GDPR implementation. Correct answer. C. It provides guidance and monitors consistency. How does the GDPR address data subject rights regarding automated decision-making and profiling? A. It prohibits profiling entirely. B. It grants the right to object and obtain explanations. C. It requires explicit consent for profiling. D. It permits unrestricted profiling. Correct answer. B. It grants the right to object and obtain explanations. How does the GDPR manage the interplay between the e-privacy directive and GDPR? A. It mandates data retention rules. B. It asserts GDPR provisions take precedence. C. It permits coexistence and complementarity. D. It prohibits all electronic communications. Correct answer. C. It permits coexistence and complementarity. How does the GDPR handle data protection impact assessments, DPIAs? A. It mandates DPIAs for high-risk processing. B. It allows voluntary DPIAs. C. It mandates DPIAs for all processing. D. It prohibits DPIAs. Correct answer. A. It mandates DPIAs for high-risk processing. How does the GDPR handle cross-border cooperation between supervisory authorities? A. It mandates supervisory authority meetings. B. It establishes a one-stop shop mechanism. C. It allows for supervisory autonomy. D. It mandates data subject consent. Correct answer. B. It establishes a one-stop shop mechanism. How does the GDPR ensure personal data security? A. It mandates encryption for all data. B. It requires appropriate technical and organizational measures. C. It restricts data collection. D. It mandates security audits. Correct answer. B. It requires appropriate technical and organizational measures.